Hey, Mike here. I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Dark Poutine early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime.
Alrighty, welcome back to Dark Poutine. I am Mike Brown here in Langley, British Columbia, not Abbotsford. And I see my friend
Matthew.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, and I am everywhere.
Matthew's everywhere. He's omnipresent.
Omnipresent.
I like the omni words. Omniscient, omnipresent, yeah.
Omnipotent.
Omnipotent. Omnipotent. Or impotent, maybe. Oh, dear.
Omnipotent.
Omnipotence. Anyway. Oh, boy. What's wrong with Mike, you say?
Mike had injections.
Yeah, I'm all sweaty. So yesterday, I had COVID and flu injections. My body is unhappy with me this morning. I got a sore arm, and I'm all sweaty.
It'll just be a day.
It'll just be a day or so, yeah.
Better than coming down with the real thing.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I've never had a reaction before, which is interesting. But all this blather has nothing to do with our topic, so let's get started.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during the Dark Poutine podcast are solely those of the producer and do not necessarily represent those of Curious Cast, its affiliate, Global News, nor their parent company, Chorus Entertainment.
Dark Poutine is not for the faint of heart or squeamish. Listener discretion is strongly advised. We're not experts on the topics we present, nor are we journalists. We're two ordinary Canadian schmucks chatting about crime and the dark side of history. Let's get to it. Put on your toque, grab yourself a double-double and a Nanaimo bar. It's time to scarf down some Dark Poutine.
You are responsible for obtaining and maintaining at your own cost all equipment needed to listen to Dark Poutine. Dark Poutine can be addictive. Side effects may include, but not be limited to, pausing and questioning the system, elevated heart rate, pondering humanity, odd looks from colleagues as you laugh out loud at work, family members not into true crime worrying about you. Positive side effects may include some perspectives and opinions that you disagree with, as well as some wokeness and empathy. If you don't think Dark Poutine is for you, consult your doctor immediately.
They were young women of faith, both 21, drawn each Sunday to the music and fellowship of Emmanuel Baptist Church. Blanche Lamont, the school teacher, serious and soft-spoken, wrote home about her bright new life in San Francisco. Minnie Williams, spirited and kind, worked hard, laughed easily, and dreamed of someday teaching as well. In April of 1895, both these women walked through the church doors and never came out again. Before the month was out, Blanche Lamont and Minnie Williams would be remembered not for how they lived, but for the man who took their lives, Canadian-born William Henry Theodore Durrant. You are listening to Dark Poutine, episode 397, Demon of the Belfry, The Murders of Blanche Lamont and Minnie Williams. San Francisco's Mission District in the spring of 1895 was a city of contrasts. Rows of modern wooden houses pressed against stately churches and the ever-present fog that drifted in from the bay, muffling sound and color alike. The fog lies thickest where the streets are narrowest, the San Francisco Chronicle remarked in an 1895 feature about the neighborhood's atmosphere, calling it a place half shrouded in piety, half in shadow. At the corner of Bartlett and 22nd stood Emmanuel Baptist Church, a pale, graceful building with stained glass windows and a tall wooden belfry that towered above the rooftops. To the people of the mission, it was a symbol of moral stability in a part of town known more for dust and saloons than sanctity. The church had not always been peaceful. Emmanuel Baptist carried what one later writer called a strangely troubled history. It had opened in the late 1870s under tragic circumstances. Two of its early pastors, Reverend Charles Hughes and his successor, both took their own lives within a few years of each other. Despite the tragedies, the congregation carried on and grew, determined to make the church a place of light amid the mission's grit. By 1895, Emmanuel Baptist was considered respectable, known for its sober choir, youth meetings, and Sunday lectures on Christian service. Among those most active in the congregation was 24-year-old William Henry Theodore Durrant. He was born on April 24, 1871 in Toronto, Ontario, to William and Isabella Durrant, who moved their family to San Francisco when he was a child. His father worked as a shoemaker, and the family was described as pious and steady. Durrant grew into a bright, serious young man fascinated by medicine. By his early 20s, he was studying at Cooper Medical College while also serving as assistant superintendent of the Emmanuel Baptist Sunday School. To church members, Durrant was courteous, well-spoken, and intelligent, a young gentleman with manners and ambition. Parishioners trusted him completely. One member later told the Oakland Tribune that Theo Durrant seemed a model of Christian manhood. He played the organ, taught Bible classes, and helped maintain the church building. When gas lines needed tending or the library organized, he was the one people called. He was so trusted he was even given keys to the church. No one could imagine that behind his composed demeanor lay something far darker. Reporters who later covered the case would describe him as mild-mannered to the point of gentleness, a perception that would make what came next even more shocking.
We put so much faith in surfaces, don't we?
Yeah.
Right, like manners, posture, education. It's like we think polish is proof of goodness or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think this case exposes how easily appearance can be mistaken for character.
Right.
The way that he's described looks like virtue incarnate, right? And that illusion helped them move without suspicion in terms of what he did to these women. And I think the danger isn't just him, but it's sort of like we, as humans, we have this collective need to believe that evil announces itself. You know what I mean? Right? Oh, I saw it coming. We all think we can see it coming.
But you can't. I mean, the most effective serial killer depictions in film are things like Anthony Hopkins playing Hannibal Lecter. Eminently intelligent, highly educated, fancy person.
Fancy.
You know? Hopkins even won an Oscar for that. But the experts say that depiction isn't really like a psychopath at all. It's interesting. We think we're going to see a monster, but in reality, we just see this banal human being.
Sometimes it's the person smiling from the front pew.
Yeah. Blanche Lamont was born in Dillon, Montana in 1873. Her family, devout Methodists, valued education and faith. Blanche excelled academically, earning praise from her teachers for her diligence and intelligence. Her younger sister described her as gentle, introverted, and serious about her studies. In 1894, Blanche was accepted into the State Normal School in San Francisco, a teacher's college that offered one of the few stable professions available to women of her era. Her family couldn't afford to send multiple children to school, so Blanche's enrollment was seen as a major achievement. She planned to return home after graduation to help support the family and perhaps to teach children in communities similar to her own. She moved to the city and lived with her aunt, Mrs. Typhenia Noble, on Bartlett Street, not far from Emmanuel Baptist Church. The neighborhood, though modest, felt safe. Blanche joined the church almost immediately. It offered community, consistency, and moral grounding. She attended prayer meetings, study sessions, and social gatherings. Members recalled that she was often seen reading scripture or discussing her coursework with friends. Church records indicated she participated in volunteer efforts, helping younger students with reading and arithmetic. She was dependable, the kind of young woman older parishioners hoped their daughters would emulate. She knew Theo Durrant through these activities. There was no romance between them, according to everyone who knew Blanche. But Theo was attentive, and she was polite. Witnesses would later testify that he escorted her home on several occasions, as he did with many young women. Minnie Williams was also 21, but her upbringing and personality differed significantly from Blanche's. Raised in Alameda, in a working-class family, Minnie learned early that self-reliance was necessary. She worked as a domestic helper for a wealthy San Francisco family, commuting across the bay and eventually renting a room in the city during the week. Those close to her described Minnie as bright, social, and full of warmth. She had a quick sense of humor and made friends easily. She was ambitious in her own way, dreaming of a more stable future and perhaps, like Blanche, one day teaching. Minnie was active at Emmanuel Baptist, too. She attended Sunday services and social gatherings. She was known to help organize events and was well liked among the younger members. But Minnie also confided something troubling. She once told her employer that Durrant had frightened her with an improper proposal. According to the San Francisco Call, Minnie said that she didn't trust him. She avoided him for several weeks, but she didn't break ties with the church. The church was much larger than one man. She believed she could manage her interactions with him. She believed the church was safe. Both women believed the sanctuary of Emmanuel Baptist protected them. They were both tragically wrong.
This is a pivotal time for women.
Mm.
So Minnie's independence didn't make her exceptional. It's just made her visible, right?
Right.
At this point in the late 1800s, the world had begun applauding women who stepped into their own lives, but at the same time, it didn't stop punishing them for it.
It still doesn't for some.
Yeah, and she was a part of this very first generation to learn that freedom doesn't cancel danger; it just changes its disguise. Society loved the image of an independent woman, but only as long as she stayed symbolic. Sort of tidy and aspirational, not inconveniently real. And like you said, that tension still lingers today in many ways. In every woman who's told she can do anything, she still has to calculate that cost of being seen.
I mean, even in my day growing up early on, men could do whatever the man wanted to do as far as career and all that kind of thing.
As long as it wasn't a feminine career.
Right, like teaching or perish the thought, nursing. Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Being a homemaker. Oh, my gosh, that man is a homemaker?
Stay-at-home dad, right?
Yeah, oh, dear. What's wrong with him?
Yeah.
That he's not out there earning.
But then women weren't allowed to be CEOs or principals.
No.
They could be teachers, but not the principal.
Right.
Yeah.
Wednesday, April 3rd, 1895 began like any other day in the Mission District. Blanche attended her classes at the State Normal School, where she was known as a hardworking and serious student. She left school at around 2 p.m., carrying a stack of textbooks and her usual satchel, and walked toward the Polk Street electric streetcar. Witnesses later described the moment she encountered Theo Durrant at the stop. Mrs. Amelia Campbell, a fellow passenger, said, "He leaned close and tapped her playfully on the arm with his glove." That detail, playful, familiar, stuck with reporters and jurors later alike. Blanche, they said, smiled politely but looked reserved, almost stiff. She wasn't flirtatious. She wasn't encouraging him. She was being courteous to a man she knew in public, as was expected of women at the time. Passengers recalled the pair sitting side by side on the streetcar as it rattled south through the city. Nothing about their interaction appeared alarming to anyone at the time. They disembarked at 21st Street. A nearby resident, Mrs. Carolyn Leake, saw them walking toward Emmanuel Baptist Church. She later testified that Durrant opened the church door for Blanche, who stepped inside with him. The door closed behind them. No one else reported seeing Blanche Lamont alive after that. Inside the church, only one person was known to be present, George King, the choir director. He was practicing hymns on the organ. The acoustics in the church made it difficult to detect where sounds were coming from. Footsteps and faint movements echoed strangely. Mr. King later recalled hearing noises above him that afternoon. He couldn't say whether it was someone walking, shifting boards, or simply the church settling, but the sounds were out of place. At around 5 p.m., Theo Durrant came down from the upper levels of the church. King described him as pale, unsteady, and sweating. Durrant handed King $1 and asked him to go to a nearby drugstore to buy some medicine, claiming the heat had made him faint. The errand provided Durrant a few minutes alone in the church. King returned, handed him the medicine, and went back to practicing. Durrant didn't mention Blanche. Blanche failed to return home for supper. That was immediately alarming. Blanche was reliable to a fault. Her aunt, Mrs. Tryphenia Noble, knew something was wrong. She went out to search. She stopped by Emmanuel Baptist, but the church was locked. That evening, during a prayer meeting, Durrant approached her and asked if she had seen Blanche. She wasn't at the meeting, he said, expressing apparent concern. Later that same night, he appeared at the Noble home with a book he had promised Blanche. He was calm, polite, and reassuring. He suggested Blanche had likely gone for a long walk or visited a friend or run an errand. Mrs. Noble still felt uneasy. When he returned 2 days later, his tone shifted. According to the Chronicle, he speculated that Blanche might have been abducted, or led astray, or fallen in with wicked company. Mrs. Noble found the insinuations offensive and bizarre, completely at odds with Blanche's character. The family and church members searched for Blanche all over the city. No one thought to search inside the church. Not yet. On April 12, 1895, Minnie Williams told her friends and employer that she planned to stop by Emmanuel Baptist Church on that Friday evening to see, quote, Mr. Durrant about something important, end quote. That phrase, later printed in the Examiner, was haunting. Minnie had trusted the church as a safe environment. It was the one place she believed Durrant couldn't harm her. She walked to the church in the early evening around 8 p.m., A neighbor saw flickering lights inside, unusual for the hour, and a shadow moving across the library window. By morning, the building was quiet. Minnie never returned to her boarding house. The next day, April 13th, members of the Women's Society arrived early to decorate the church for Easter Sunday. They carried baskets of flowers and ribbons through the building, chatting as they set up. Mrs. Vogel went to the library cupboard to fetch cups for tea. When she opened the cabinet, she screamed. Inside, crumpled and brutally mutilated, was the body of a young woman. Her lips and fingers bore signs of intense violence. She had been stabbed. Her clothing was torn. Another church member identified her almost immediately. It was Minnie Williams. Captain I.W. Lees of the San Francisco Police Department arrived quickly. Officers sealed the building and began a methodical search. They looked through every room, storage area, and side hallway. It was a church member, not an officer, who reminded them of the Belfry. The Belfry was often locked, seldom used except for bell maintenance. Few members had keys. It was later revealed that Durrant was one of them. Officers forced the door open. As they climbed the narrow wooden stairs, they were hit with a foul odor. At the top, between the rafters, they found Blanche Lamont. Her body was arranged with eerie care, stripped of clothing, hands folded on her chest, head braced between two planks. Her pale skin had taken on a rigid, statue-like quality. The San Francisco Call described her as, quote, so white and pure she seemed a marble statue. She'd been there for 10 days.
The difference in how their bodies were found feels deliberate and almost symbolic to me. It's as if Durrant was staging two opposing ideas of womanhood.
That's kind of high-minded. Okay, explain.
So Blanche was kind of like everything you described, sort of the more devout, disciplined one, right, was arranged up high like a saint or sacrifice, and her hands were posed, and they talk how she is like a white statue. And Minnie, who was freer and more outspoken, was left mutilated and hidden in a cupboard.
Right. One's in this representation of the church, the Belfry.
Yeah.
And the other one is just crammed nastily into a cupboard.
And I think that's I think that's actually maybe intentional from the murder. It's as though he turned both of them into two statements, one sanctified, one defiled, like the two ends of the same patriarchal imagination.
Interesting.
Think about it. It's like, why pose so differently?
Maybe he didn't have time.
Maybe. I think he was just psycho.
You don't think he was creative, maybe? But you're right. A deeper look makes it feel like it's a message of some kind. News traveled fast. Faster than any police statement could keep up with. The Chronicle thundered. Horrors in a church. 2 young women dead. Newspapers printed extra editions. Headlines grew increasingly sensational, especially as out-of-state papers picked up the story. The murders horrified the public not only because of their brutality, but because of where they happened. The press needed a name for the monster they believed responsible, and they found one fast. The San Francisco Examiner printed the phrase in bold type, "The Demon of the Belfry." The nickname stuck instantly. It blended moral outrage with theatrical fear and within days appeared in newspapers across the U.S.
The media does this, right? The name sort of blends morality and horror with a kind of marketable myth, you know? And I think they do it because moral language sells newspapers, right?
Sure.
By naming him a demon, they're offering both horror and reassurance, you know, that, you know, there's evil, but it's contained and it's personified and it's going to be punished, right? And, they get quite creative with these names, don't they?
Yeah, they definitely do. As Theo Durrant appeared to be the last person to have been seen with either woman, to the disbelief of many parishioners, he quickly became the number one suspect in the murders. Investigators learned that Theo Durrant had left San Francisco shortly after Minnie's disappearance. A military reservist, he had joined his California Signal Corps unit at Camp Meeker. Captain Lees and other officers from the San Francisco police rode north. Durrant's arrest happened quietly. According to the Examiner, quote, "He made no resistance when taken into custody. He appeared as calm as if nothing unusual had occurred." Captain Lees later said, "His composure chilled every man in the room." In the hours and days following the arrest, the evidence collected against Theo Durrant began piling up. Blanche was last seen entering the church with him. Minnie had agreed to meet with him at the church. He held the keys to the building. Blanche's ring had been pawned under a false name tied to him. He had behaved strangely in the days following Blanche's disappearance, and his stories were inconsistent and implausible. Investigators found no sign that anyone else could have committed the murders without being seen. There was no evidence of forced entry or unknown intruders to the church. When questioned, Durrant denied everything. He claimed he hadn't seen Blanche after she left school, despite multiple witnesses saying otherwise. He insisted Minnie, quote, "came and went as she pleased," and that he had no idea where she'd gone that Friday evening. In a shocking turn, he suggested that Reverend George Gibson, the church's pastor, might have been responsible. The accusation stunned the congregation and disgusted investigators. As word spread that Durrant had been arrested, crowds gathered outside the city jail. They shouted, "Hang him now," and "Lynch the beast." Police had to push them back. Officers guarded the building through the night to prevent a riot. Reporters wrote about the crowd's fury almost as much as they wrote about the murders themselves. San Francisco had never seen anything like it. The discovery produced instant outrage throughout the city. Crowds formed outside Emmanuel Baptist, and newspapers across the country began printing extra editions. Reporters poured into the Mission District, sketching the church, interviewing neighbors, and describing the scenes with Victorian graphic detail. One correspondent for the Examiner wrote, quote, "The demon was not found in the streets, but in the house of worship, beside the pulpit and the Bible," end quote. Both young women had trusted their sanctuary. Their final moments, one in the quiet of the belfry, the other behind a cupboard, would bind their names together in memory. The old church was still a house of worship, but now tainted by tragedy. The scale of the public revulsion was nearly unprecedented in San Francisco's history. The Chronicle reported that mothers held their daughters from the church steps, and that visitors came by the hundreds merely to stand outside and stare up at its steeple. For years afterward, even after Durrant was no more, residents would cross to the opposite sidewalk when passing the corner of Bartlett and 22nd Streets. Once the site of Sunday hymns and Bible study, Emmanuel Baptist had become a symbol of betrayal and dread. More after a quick break. And we are back at the halfway point. Matthew, what are your thoughts so far?
So I was in the Anglican Christchurch Cathedral this autumn.
Okay.
For a Halloween-themed string quartet, you know, those candlelight ones that they do. They played classical pieces about death, and then they had like a whole serial killer section, like Halloween and Psycho, and for a bit of fun, they did the Addams Family theme song, which was great. And, you know, the music was beautiful, but I couldn't stop thinking while I'm sitting there about the space that I was listening to the music in.
Yeah.
Not out of piety, because I don't think anyone would call me pious, but
No.
because of that.
Even if your name was Pious.
Yeah, exactly. But because of that tension, right, between reverence and performance, it's like this. So I was sitting there thinking, what's appropriate in a church, right? Where does art start to become intrusion, right? I was sitting there kind of feeling like, oh, we're listening to like serial killer movie music in a working cathedral, right? Mm-hmm. And I kept thinking that a church isn't only a place for worship, but it's kind of like a brand, right? Mike, have you spent much time in like cathedrals or churches?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But you can see like that whole architecture of persuasion, right?
That's why I go, because
they're beautiful,
amazing.
Right? The stained glass, everything's a message on how to behave and what to revere. And even like when I was at this cathedral, emptied of faith, you know, filled with people who just want to be there for horror film music, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The building was still performing this propaganda. And I was sitting there thinking, wow, this is really weird, right? And I think that sort of illusion of Durrant understood that sort of sanctity of set dressing. Like he knew what the building represented. And I think he did it there to try to get away with it a little bit more easily. Yeah. And I also think that's the point. You know, churches aren't built to protect faith. They exist to show what happens to faith when the world walks in. And in this case, it was a pretty bad story, right?
Right. San Francisco's newspapers had covered violent crimes before, but nothing prepared them or the public for the murders inside Emmanuel Baptist Church. The idea that a religious sanctuary could become a killing ground struck at the core of the city's moral identity. Every detail printed by the press seemed to deepen the shock. Crowds gathered outside the church daily. Some prayed, some wept, others simply stared upward as if expecting to see ghosts staring back at them from the belfry windows. People traveled from other neighborhoods and even other cities to stand at the corner of Bartlett and 22nd Streets, hoping to understand something impossible to comprehend. Public reaction grew so intense that police stationed officers outside the building to prevent crowds from breaking in to see the crime scenes for themselves. In an era before television or radio, newspapers were the main conduit of information, and they capitalized on every ounce of the public's fascination. The murders occurred at the height of what historians call the yellow journalism era. Sensationalism sold papers, and editors weren't shy about using dramatic language, gruesome illustrations, and moralistic storytelling to drive circulation. The San Francisco Call, Chronicle, and Examiner competed with one another for the most shocking headlines. Papers from Chicago, New York, and Boston reprinted stories from California, often adding embellishments. One Chicago reporter wrote that the case, quote, reads like the darkest sort of fiction, with a church for its scene and a scholar for its devil, end quote. Illustrations of the church tower, Durrant's face, and imagined scenes of the murders appeared in nearly every edition. In some drawings, he was portrayed almost like a Gothic villain, brooding, shadowed, monstrous. Public fear fed into the frenzy. Women were warned not to walk alone. Pastors across the city preached sermons about moral vigilance. Social clubs held meetings about how to protect young women. Boarding house matrons questioned their tenants about every outing. This was more than a crime, it was a cultural earthquake. When the trial of William Henry Theodore Durrant opened on July 22, 1895, the courthouse was packed before dawn. People began lining up hours early, hoping for a seat. Some carried parasols and handkerchiefs to endure the heat. Others brought sketchbooks to draw what they could not photograph. The Chronicle noted that each morning it became a contest to enter. Inside, the atmosphere was thick, a mixture of grief, outrage, curiosity, and morbid fascination. Women fainted from heat and emotion. Spectators stood along the walls, reporters elbowed for space. The trial was not just a legal proceeding, it was a spectacle. Durrant entered the courtroom each day in a dark suit with a clean collar. He sat upright, usually calm. Reporters observed him chatting with his attorneys, Eugene Dupre and John Dickinson, as though discussing academic matters rather than facing a possible death sentence. His demeanor unsettled many. Some reporters wrote that he looked smug. Others said he appeared bored. Very few described him as frightened. In the press, his composure was sometimes interpreted as coldness, proof in the public's eyes of his guilt. The prosecution was led by District Attorney William S. Barnes and Assistant District Attorney Edgar Piaxoto. They opened their case by calling the murders, quote, a crime at once sacrilegious and calculating. The defense attempted to portray the evidence as circumstantial and hinted repeatedly that Reverend Gibson might have been involved, an accusation that the pastor denied fiercely, but the prosecution had the stronger hand. They didn't have eyewitnesses to the murders, but they had motive, means, opportunity, physical evidence, and testimony from multiple witnesses, placing Theo Durrant with both victims immediately before their disappearances. Witness after witness took the stand, painting a narrative that grew more damning each day. Carolyn Leake testified that she'd seen Durrant escorting Blanche into the church. George King described Durrant's pale appearance, fainting spell, and request that King leave the church to fetch medicine. It was also recalled that Durrant attempted to pawn Blanche's ring under a false name. Witnesses recounted the discovery of Minnie's body and the shock that followed. Dr. Charles Cheney testified that Blanche's injuries, quote, could have only been made by one acquainted with surgical instruments. His testimony carried weight. The idea that a medical student had used his anatomical knowledge to kill seemed to horrify jurors even more than the religious setting of the crimes. One of the most memorable moments of the trial came when Blanche's younger sister Maud entered the courtroom. Descriptions from the time portrayed her as small, dressed entirely in black, with her auburn hair braided nearly to her waist. As she walked in, the call reported, "Every head turned." Maud took the stand. With trembling hands, she identified Blanche's ring, the one that had been pawned, as her sister's. She described Blanche's gentle nature, her dedication to studies, and her devotion to her family. The courtroom fell silent. Some spectators wept. Jurors shifted uncomfortably. Maud's presence grounded the case. Blanche became more than a victim in a sensational story. She became a real person with a family, a future, and hopes cut short. During cross-examination, Durrant's attorney attempted to argue that Blanche was too heavy for Durrant to carry to the Belfry. The implication that her physical size somehow undermined the prosecution's theory drew disgusted murmurs and hisses from the audience. It was a poor strategic choice, and it seemed to damage the defense's credibility further. Evidence exhibits shocked attendees, Blanche's jewelry, scraps of torn fabric, and grisly photographs of the crime scenes. Reporters said several women fainted and one older juror became ill. The San Francisco Call noted that, quote, it was no longer a trial of a man, but of faith itself. Every church in the city felt its pulpit shake, end quote.
That's total Victorian melodrama, isn't it?
Right? Yeah.
You know, the press love turning every courtroom into this cosmic struggle.
Yeah.
Where morality trembled and civilization hangs in the balance, right? It was a murder of 2 women. It's horrible, but it's like civilization isn't hanging in the balance.
No.
I think the point here is, you know, if you can corrupt a church, then the punishment has to cleanse that corruption, right? Because it's a symbol.
What has become of this world?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, they're using spectacle because I think they know that the guy's going to be found guilty. So they're creating like this like super big narrative to sell the next newspaper as well.
Sure.
When he is found guilty.
Right. District Attorney Barnes delivered a forceful closing argument. He reminded jurors of Theo Durrant's access to the church, his medical knowledge, his conflicting statements, and the physical evidence linking him to both deaths. Piexato added, quote, "Each lie, small on its own, together builds the scaffold for his guilt," end quote. Reporters described the courtroom as electric. The defense again attempted to cast suspicion on Pastor Gibson, claiming he alone could have committed a crime unnoticed. Gibson himself called the accusation a shameful lie. Most courtroom observers found the theory implausible. After 45 days of testimony, Judge Daniel J. Murphy gave his instructions. The jury retired. They returned in less than 20 minutes. The verdict? Guilty. At his sentencing hearing, Durrant did not react. He stood stoic as Judge Carol Cook pronounced the order that he be hanged at San Quentin. Reporters wrote that he whispered 2 words to his attorney when the verdict was read. "Thank you." Prosecutors did not pursue a separate trial for Minnie Williams. They believed the evidence in her case was even stronger and saw no need for additional proceedings. The Chronicle wrote, quote, "The people of California have judged him twice, once in court and once in conscience," end quote. After the conviction, Durrant's lawyers filed appeal after appeal. They argued that the evidence was circumstantial, the investigative process flawed, and the media coverage prejudicial. The California Supreme Court reviewed the case in March 1897 and upheld the conviction. The U.S. Supreme Court later rejected further petition, ruling in 1897 that no new grounds warranted federal intervention. Each failed appeal delayed the execution. 4 execution dates were set, then postponed. During his years at San Quentin, Durrant wrote letters to supporters and journalists. He blamed the press entirely. He maintained that he was innocent. He claimed that he'd been condemned before the trial even began. He also wrote to his mother promising her that truth would clear his name in God's time. But the public was unmoved. Sympathy for Durrant dwindled. Isabella Durrant, his mother, visited him frequently. Reporters described her as, quote, "a pale shadow of a woman, dignified and calm, who stood by her son when the world had condemned him." His father withdrew from public life entirely. His sister, Beulah Maud Durrant, later known worldwide as Maud Allen, the famous dancer, left the United States soon after the trial. But even years later, when she achieved international fame, her brother's crimes would follow her. A 1918 London headline read, quote, "Maud Allen, sister of the demon of the Belfry," end quote. His family never escaped the stigma. On January 7, 1898, at around 10 a.m., guards led Theo Durrant from his cell to the gallows at San Quentin. Witnesses described him as calm, composed, eerily so. His final statement was brief, quote, "This crime was fastened on me by the press of San Francisco, but I forgive all," end quote. At 10:35 a.m., the trapdoor opened and Durrant plunged through. Crowds gathered outside the prison, waiting for confirmation. When the news reached San Francisco, extra editions of newspapers were printed. Papers sold out within hours. His family claimed his remains. He was cremated in Pasadena. His ashes were returned to his parents in San Francisco. Blanche's mother reportedly kept her photograph on the mantel until her death. Her aunt, Mrs. Noble, who had tried so hard to convince herself Blanche was safe, later said, quote, "Oh, we know. That is, we feel certain Theodore Durrant is guilty. and to think that I urged her to accept his attentions." End quote. Her guilt lingered for years. Minnie's family withdrew from public view. She was often referred to in newspapers simply as the other girl, a deeply unfair reduction of a life full of promise. Her landlady remembered Minnie's optimism even in hard times. "If I'm afraid, I pray a little louder. That always helps." Emmanuel Baptist Church did not survive long after the murders. The building stood for 11 more years before being destroyed in the 1906 earthquake and fire. No memorial plaque was ever installed. No official acknowledgement marked the site of the deaths. The corner where the church once stood returned to anonymity, its past known mostly to historians and those who remembered the chilling headlines. What made the case unforgettable was not only the brutality of the murders, but the violation of a sacred space. Blanche and Minnie were killed in the last place they believed danger could reach them. They trusted the church, they trusted the people in it, and they sort of trusted Theo Durrant. Their faith in a sanctuary, in a community, in a man, became the path that led them to their deaths. Blanche represented discipline, scholarship, and devotion. Minnie represented independence, optimism, and self-reliance. They were different young women, navigating the city and trusting the same sanctuary. Their stories, intertwined in tragedy, revealed how vulnerable women were in a society that often scolded them for caution and yet blamed them when caution wasn't enough. They were not symbols, they were people, and they deserved to be remembered fully, not only for the violence that ended their lives, but for the aspirations that once carried them into the doors of Emmanuel Baptist Church. And that's it for Dark Poutine episode 397, Demon of the Belfry, The Murders of Blanche Lamont and Minnie Williams.
That's right. It's time for voicemails. You can leave us a message at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you. Let's see who called us this week.
Here is our first of 3 voicemails.
Hey, Mike and Matthew. This is Alana all the way from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I'm a huge fan of Dark Poutine. I just finished listening to The Duel in Perth, and a couple times it almost reminded me of Hamilton, the 10 Dual Commandments song. Have a listen. That's just what it reminded me of. Anyway, hopefully you guys will do some local crime stuff from Saskatoon or around the area. Can't wait to hear you guys next week. Have a good one.
Thank you very much.
For a second there, I thought she was telling us to do local crime.
Well, why not? Why the heck not?
Go break a few windows, Mike.
Yeah.
Alana, thank you.
Alana from Saskatoon. What does she do there, Matthew?
What do you think Alana does?
Oh, I've got some ideas.
I think she is a zine maker. She has her own zine.
Oh, I remember those zines. You could usually buy them in like a head shop or if people don't know what a head shop is, it's a place where you go to buy your bong way back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they may or may not have had weed behind the counter. It may or may not have. But yeah, and so people would write these magazines called a zine, and they'd be super creative, lots of drawings, and usually like photocopied, and it was really really great.
Together.
Yeah, I loved them. I loved them.
So Atlanta has her own zine.
You go.
It's called Local Crime.
Local Crime by Alana from Saskatoon. It's probably a good idea, and she should do that. And then send me stories so I can, so I don't have to do so much research about Saskatoon.
Just read her zines out loud, right?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that. I would expand.
Expand.
Yeah, and then use her as a source. Absolutely. All righty. We do have another voicemail, actually 2 more, so let's listen to this one.
Long-time listener, first-time commenter. Listening to the voicemail from your listener about Ocean Gate recently, the darkest depths, the Titan submersible disaster. Anyway, wouldn't it properly be Ocean Gate? Anyways, I digress. Like she did. Not to make light of it, but better that than what I'm really thinking. The show is great. Keep it up. Michael Westcott. You might have seen me on Facebook. Okay, thanks, gentlemen. We'll talk again. Bye.
Michael Westcott is a shit disturber on the
Oh,
Embryo.
he's certainly.
Yes. Thanks
Hello,
for
Michael.
calling, Mike. Now we
Thank
have a
you so
voice to
much.
go with that name that tends to upset some folks. Dude, chill. Just a little. Chill just a bit.
He's hilarious.
We love that people express themselves, but yeah, chill. Just a tiny bit.
Ocean Gate. That's funny.
Ocean Gate.
Ocean
Yes.
Gate.
I'm glad. I mean, he did actually edit himself, holding back there. So good on you, Michael Westcott. Good on you. What do you think this guy does for a living, Matthew?
I have the same issues. I'm not good.
No.
I'm not good at editing myself. Absolutely the same issue.
Yeah, you leave it to me to edit you. So
What does he do? He's an
what
editor.
does Michael Westcott
He's an
do?
editor.
Oh, jeez. So he's not very good at his job then.
Oh, come on. Don't be mean to Michael.
Oh, boy.
We love you, man.
Yeah. Thank you for being so active in the Umberyard. We really appreciate you. We do have one more voicemail, and we will have a listen right now, right this moment.
Hi, Mike and Matthew. It's Lacey from Calgary. Again, I like to call. Just listened to episode, I want to say 386, the Boxing Day one. Two things. I can't stand how so often random crimes always take the best of us, it seems. You know, you never hear about pedophiles and rapists and other horrible people getting struck, you know, by random bullets and crossfire. So it's such a tragedy that, you know, so many wonderful people are taken from us too soon. And also, this episode just makes me wish that, you know, all of the times people have told you guys to, you know, take a crap in some form of headgear, we could just collect all that excrement and shove it in some people's faces. All of these crappy gang members and stupid parole board people, you know, sometimes I just want to be able to take those, you know, toque poops and chuck them at some crappy people. Anyway, but you guys are, you know, good eggs. You always do an amazing job. And I just wanted to call and tell you that. Thanks. Bye.
Well, thanks, Lacey.
Thank you, Lacey.
We've given Lacey a job before, probably multiple times.
We have, but
she's called.
This week, she's one of those old school telephone operators.
Oh,
You know, where
one
they have,
ringy dingy, and she's like,
right, and like pulls the cord out and plugs it in the other.
"Hold for Mr. Rogers, please." Yes,
What a
interesting.
job, man.
Yeah. Well, I don't. You know, maybe those kind of people, maybe awful people, do get struck down by different things, and maybe we just don't hear about it because nobody cares that an awful person got struck down.
Or we didn't know they were
Okay.
awful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, thank you, Lacey, for calling again. We can always rely on you for a voicemail.
Indeedy.
Indeedly doodly.
Indeed. What was his name?
Oh no.
Mr. Rogers? No.
Yeah.
Oh my God, our memories are going. We're old.
Yeah, we had trouble remembering Ned Flanders. When I was doing the Traders, Cedric, the comedian, not the Cedric, the other Cedric that I was on the show with, called me Flanders all the time because of my mustache and my glasses. And I pretended to be upset.
Even better, I love that he pretends that he's a comedian.
Right. I thought you had to be funny to be a comedian. Anyway.
He was just annoying.
Moving on. Oh, dear, oh, dear. That's it for this week's voicemails. Again, you can leave us one at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you, even if it is just to say hi and to tell us to go shit in our hats. If you're stumped for what to chat with us about, a quick story is welcome. Okay, we don't have any PayPal or Patreon donations this week, but that's okay. We know you love us anyway.
Well, some of them do.
Yeah. Some of them do.
So
maybe I wonder if anybody listens to our show.
Some probably do, but we love you anyway.
Yeah, we love you anyway. You know what? You need a big old hug. You need
some guys out there. Oh no, a gay person told me they love me. I do love you in a platonic way.
Well, who knows? You haven't met them yet. They may be very cute.
Yeah. I'm too old. I'm at this point. I'm too old for all that. Love thy neighbor.
Love thy neighbor. That's the way I feel too. Thanks to all our patrons and Donut Money donors, past and present, for your generosity. It helps to keep the show going. You can become a patron of Dark Poutine at patreon.com/darkpoutine. For a one-time donation, you can send us donut money via PayPal or interact using our email address, darkpoutinepodcast@gmail.com. If you don't already subscribe to the show, it would mean a lot if you did. You can easily find Dark Poutine on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you haven't gotten yours yet, my 2 books are available to order via links on the Dark Poutine website or anywhere fine books are sold. And speaking of darkpoutine.com, check it out for show notes and other cool stuff. We'd appreciate it if you gave Dark Poutine a like or a follow on Facebook and Instagram. Most importantly, thank you for listening. Tell your friends about us. Word of mouth is a powerful thing. And that is it for this episode of Dark Poutine. So until next time, which is, oh my goodness gracious, the Christmas episode.
Oh, should we kind of be more festive?
Next time.
Ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho, ho. Ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho, ho. We're almost there. It's almost Christmas time.
Ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho, ho.
If you put a comma between the second and last ho, you're calling somebody something mean. Ho, ho, ho.
Do you remember ho-hos?
Oh, I remember ho-hos. Anyway, bye, folks.